This movie was really funny, especially for a movie that only had 3 Hitler references. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
Not too bad, man. What's up with you?
Not a whole lot. I'm determined not to complain about how tired I am, because we've both been complaining a lot about that on the last couple of episodes. So I'm working third shift now, again, for a little bit. I'm not going to keep bringing that up. I am exhausted, but I'm not going to complain about it.
I think this is like the third week in a row you've brought it up, though. So
yeah, I know.
I think we all know.
For sure.
I'm just kidding. No.
So I feel like that before we get started, should probably start pimping Popcaan, because that's coming up in less than a month.
Yeah, it's sneaking up quick.
So if you don't already know, obviously Tyler and I go to Indy Popcaan here in Indianapolis every year. It's been a lot of fun. We've gone every year that they've had it. This will be the third year in a row. It runs from June 17th to June 19th. Tickets are still available. I don't know about VIPs because they're pretty limited availability wise. So I don't know if they still have VIP tickets left, but I know tickets are still available. We are booth 351. We got that email the other day, and so I'm definitely excited about that. We're literally pretty much directly behind our friends over at the Obsessive Viewer, so I'm just going to be staring at Matt's butt the whole time, which is always nice. Tyler may or may not be by himself on Friday, so plan accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good to go. I was there by myself last year. The only thing that sucks is I can't wander away from the table at any point, but yeah. I can't go flirt with Karen Gillian or anything fun like that. I'll just have to hold it down, but it'll be all right.
Yeah, for sure. Do you mean hold it down like hold down the booth or hold down your boner?
Depends how close we are to Karen Gillian, I guess.
Well, for sure.
Or the cosplay table, for that matter.
Let's not bring that up again.
Have they announced when we're recording yet or anything?
No, I checked their schedule, and they only have a couple of podcasts scheduled as far as the live recording.
Obviously saving the best for last then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and obviously we still don't know who we're recording with or if we're recording with anyone. So it may just be me and Tyler up there, which is, I mean, obviously okay with us. I mean, we love having guests on it. It's been 2 years in a row that we've had some really cool guests. First year was David Yoder, and then the second year that we did it was Stev Ray Bro. Both were great guests. We enjoyed having them on. But if it just ends up being me and Tyler, then we're cool with that as well.
Yeah, if it's anything like the last 2 years, we will literally find out who we're going to record with like probably 2 hours beforehand. So
yeah, for sure.
It'd basically be us running around asking people, hey, do you want to be on our podcast? So yeah, we'll see.
All right, so if this is your first episode, we start off each episode by kind of checking in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week, Tyler?
So 2 weeks ago, brought up Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Last week, I brought up Silicon Valley. So I figured that I probably shouldn't bring up another HBO show this week, but I'm going to bring up another HBO show anyways. So I think the reason behind all this HBO goodness coming my way is I've been using a free trial of HBO Now.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty awesome. Like anything that they've ever put out is on this streaming service, which is pretty cool. So I actually went back and watched the first season of Ballers.
Okay.
That came out last summer. I was somewhat interested. I watched the first couple of episodes of Vinyl as well, and I'll probably get through that in the next week. But Ballers was a really easy watch. It's 10 episodes, and each episode is a half hour.
Oh, really?
If not a little less. So just a super easy watch. I watched it in like 2 or 3 sittings, and I actually liked it more than I thought I would. And when I started watching it, I didn't realize it, but it's basically the same people that created Entourage. I'm not thrilled to admit that I watched 100% of Entourage and I actually enjoyed it. That show gets a lot of shit for like the frat-like aspect of it, but I thought it was part of it part of what I liked about it, I should say, was that it was a cool look into how the business works in the movie world. So you kind of got out behind the scenes look at agents and how
Entourage you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still talking about Entourage.
Yeah, okay.
So basically where I'm going into all this about Entourage is because Ballers is basically Entourage for football.
Okay.
Or for sports. There's a ton of similarities to Entourage. I mean, Marky Mark's producing it, so on and so forth. So, it's a fun look at football and the business aspect of football for fans like us. So I don't think that this show is for everybody, but you and I are both big football fans, and I think that it's kind of a cool look at agents and financial planners and things like that. So The Rock is obviously the star of this show. He's in just about everything, it seems like nowadays, but has this real charisma to him. It's easy to root for him, so he works in a show like this because you want to see him succeed. Rob Corddry's also in it. He plays The Rock's friend, his business partner, I guess you could say. They work together at the same financial institution.
That's a weird combo.
Yeah, it really is. But they have like a kind of funny chemistry together. It works. It really does. So there's cool cameos in it from players like Victor Cruz is in a few episodes, and
he had time on his hands.
Yeah, he did. And a couple other players pop in here and there, but the main characters are fictional. They're not real football players, obviously. Yeah. So like I said, show's not for everybody, but I think that if you're a big fan of the NFL, it's kind of interesting to look at what behind the scenes might possibly look like. So I'd recommend it. It's a really quick watch, and season 2 starts, I believe, in July. So
cool, man. I don't have HBO, but this is definitely a show that I'm interested in if I ever did get it. I love John Oliver, so I've been kind of going back and forth about whether or not I should get HBO now, because I love Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
Yeah.
Obviously, I want to get into Silicon Valley, which you talked about last week. I love Game of Thrones. So there's a lot of great shows on HBO. It's just right now I just can't justify paying the money for it. So
yeah, I thought that I would use it for a month and cancel it, but I'm honestly considering keeping it going. I might cancel it after Game of Thrones is over, but right now it's pretty much all I'm watching is HBO now.
Yeah, and I just recently decided to stick with GameFly for a little bit, and that's the same price range as HBO now, so it's like it's kind of hard to justify 2 of those services.
For sure. Well, if you want to watch it, I'm sure there's other means to get
legal,
that,
of course.
Of course, legal. I would never recommend anything otherwise. All right, man, what are you into this week?
I am into a movie called Hush. It was written and directed by Mike Flanagan, who did Oculus, which is a movie that I heard really good things about, and I was kind of ultimately disappointed by. So he's not necessarily a writer or director that I kind of seek out, but I had heard really good things about this particular movie. It is a horror movie like Oculus. It is about a deaf writer who leaves the big city and isolates herself in the country to get over a breakup and is preyed upon a psycho killer. I was going to actually save this movie for Shocktober, but like I said, it was getting really good reviews, and one of my good friends, Mike from The Obsessive Viewer, he's kind of the guy that I know that is really, really into horror movies. Like Tyler and I are huge fanboys of the genre as well, but he kind of takes it to a whole new level. And so when he says something is good, it's really good. I definitely respect his opinion. And for me, this movie was kind of like The Strangers meets You're Next, which are 2 horror movies that I really enjoy. It's The Strangers in the aspect that this killer, there's really no rhyme or reason why he picks who he picks. It's just he enjoys killing people, torturing and killing people. And so obviously that's a big part of The Strangers. And then of course it's You're Next in the aspect that there's this strong female character who kicks a lot of ass in this movie. So that's definitely something that I think has been lacking in the horror genre. Obviously, female characters play a big role in the genre, but they're not always the strongest characters. So I appreciate when a movie comes along and the female character, especially in Your Next, because there's other male characters in that show that are kind of pussies. Yeah. And then she kind of carries the group. So I appreciated that about that movie. Hush kind of checks all the boxes for me for a modern horror film. It builds really strong characters, especially in the beginning when it's feeding you some exposition, but it's also building really strong characters. There's a quick, dynamic between these two characters. I was kind of getting a strong lesbian vibe between these two characters, which is never a bad thing. And there's very little jump scares in this movie. I mean, it has a few, which I think all horror films kind of fall into that trap every once in a while.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a horror film and not have at least a couple of them in there, but it really builds the atmosphere, and especially towards the middle of the movie, like it's more like a psychological thriller than it is a straight up horror movie, because they established that the killer is outside and she's kind of locked herself inside and he's just fucking with her. Like he flat out tells her, he's like, I can come in whenever I want. And I'll just kill you whenever I want. Like he's going to have his fun with her, and then he's going to kill her whenever he feels like it. So it's more of a psychological thriller in the middle of the movie. It kind of starts off as the slasher, then it has a psychological thriller aspect to it in the middle, and it really ends strong. The third act it starts off, it's very rare that a horror movie surprises me, or a movie in general, just because I've seen so many, especially in the horror genre. But the start of the third act, something happens, and I'm just like, wait, what? And they tease an aspect of a character early in the movie, and I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I'm trying to stay away from spoilers, because this really got me. And so I want it to get other people, like our listeners, if they seek this movie out, which obviously I'm recommending. I want them to be as surprised as possible, because I literally sat up and I was like, what? I mean, that can't happen. There's 20 minutes left of this movie. This can't be what I'm watching. Like, and it's very rare that a movie does that, especially a horror movie. And I was taking notes, and it kind of bugged me the whole time I was watching it, because I recognized the killer, because he starts off with this really creepy mask, but then at a certain point, like I said, he just kind of starts fucking with the woman, and so he takes off the mask, and he looks super familiar. It's the guy from 10 Cloverfield Lane, Buddy.
Oh yeah,
in the movie is
John
the killer.
Goodman?
No.
Okay. The other guy.
Yeah, the other guy. And so it really bugged me. I don't know his name. Obviously, I'm terrible with names, but I don't remember the actor's name, but he is fantastic. The main actress in it is great. There's not a ton of other characters. It's a pretty tight, kind of small movie. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely suggest it.
Is the actress known?
She looked familiar, so I knew I'd seen her in other things, but I wouldn't say that she's famous by any stretch.
Cool. Yeah, you've got me intrigued. Like, I might watch it tonight. Is it on demand?
Yeah, I watched it on Netflix. I'm not even sure.
It's on Netflix?
Yeah, I'm not even sure it has got a theatrical release or anything like that.
Dude, you had me at Netflix. It's fucking basically free. So
yeah, and it's only an hour and a half. Like it's a really tight movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it. I keep a kind of like a running tally, because obviously at the end of the year, well, at the beginning of next year, we will do our best of lists with Matt Hurt from The Obsessive Viewer. And so as I watch a movie that's released in 2016, I keep a tally, and this movie is on that list so far. Whether or not it makes the ultimate list at the beginning of next year remains to be seen, but it's on the list as of right now.
Sweet. I'm going to probably watch it tonight, man.
For sure.
All right, you ready to move on?
Yep. Our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I'm going to talk about Batman TMNT number 6.
Awesome.
Which concludes...
Don't spoil too much, because I haven't read it yet.
Have you read 5?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to spoil 5.
Okay.
Something that happens in 5 that I don't like. So this is the conclusion to this miniseries, and it kind of teases the end of 6, the conclusion for now. So they might go back and do more of these. This miniseries started out very strong. You and I both love the first few issues, and I thought that they did a really great mashup of these worlds, and these characters actually kind of fit well together, even though I maybe didn't think otherwise going into it. The problem is that it lost me in issues 5 and 6.
Really?
Yes, very much lost me. So the mutagen is a huge part of the TMNT universe, and I get that, but when Batman's rogue gallery turns into animals, that was really fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Do you not remember this happening?
Yeah, Maybe I just repressed it.
So the issue 5 ends with like the twist that Shredder and Ra's al Ghul have turned basically everyone in Arkham into animals, and that's really like I
do remember that.
Yeah, it's really bad. So the alliance between Shredder and Ra's is a cool concept, and those villains fit together really well. And then Batman and TMNT, they fit together really well also. But then they shoehorn all of Batman's rogue gallery into the last issue and a half and turn them into animals. And it's just a really weird concept that I couldn't really wrap my head around in this universe. What's even weirder is that the villains, in Arkham, they're completely cool with it. Like, they're not like freaking out or anything. They're just like, yep, we're animals now. We're going to fuck you up, Batman. Yeah. And I couldn't take, like, it's weird to say I couldn't take it seriously because it's a comic book about mutant turtles and a guy who dresses up like a bat who's also a ninja. So I understand that that's a weird thing to say, but it was just a little too far-fetched for me. So I'm not going to let this one plot aspect completely tarnish the whole miniseries for me because I thought there was a lot of good in these 6 issues, and I'd like to see future mashups, maybe Batman going to the Turtles universe. But that one big misstep with the Arkham inmates is hard to get through for me.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that. I haven't read issue 6, like I said, but I've really enjoyed it. Obviously, I'm a huge Turtles fan, and we talk about Batman like every episode, it seems like. So, I mean, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Batman as well. So it was kind of my dream to see these two universes kind of mesh together, and they mesh so well. I think that Batman and TMNT, they play off each other really well. Batman is obviously dark and brooding, and the Turtles, even though they do have darker aspects to them, the current run is a little bit darker, but they are fun and they do joke around, and they do kind of carry that over from the original cartoon. So I appreciated kind of how well that they bounce off of each other, especially Alfred and Michelangelo share a couple of really funny moments, especially with pizza. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I've forgotten about the whole animals thing.
Like I said, I hate that I dwelled on just that because it was a fun miniseries, but the last 2 issues for me were really kind of tarnished a bit by that kind of obscure plot point. But yeah, man, what do you read this week?
I picked up Civil War 2 issue 0, which is going to get confusing when we talk about this particular event in the future. I always think it's silly to call an issue 0.
Yeah, I kind of hate that a little.
But I guess I kind of understand it because it's very similar to like the annual issues in comic books that kind of give you not necessarily a one shot, but more like backstory, kind of set the stage for what's to come in the story. And I talked about this with Uncanny Inhuman 0. I think it was maybe a year ago. And that particular book kind of catches us up with Black Bolt. And this book, Civil War 2, issue 0, it does a similar thing with Captain Marvel. That's not a book that I read. And apparently she's the leader of Alpha Flight, which is a really stupid fucking name for a superhero team. But I guess she's the leader of that. This book, I don't want to say it's not really necessary to read, it makes sense why it's issue 0. It gives you backstory, and it's more like additional reading. Unfortunately for me, I was reading up until a couple of months ago, I was reading 3 different books, All New Inhumans, Uncanny Inhumans, and Extraordinary X-Men. And now I'm just reading Extraordinary X-Men for one reason, pretty much. They're all kind of sort of tied together in the sense that in Infinity, which is was one of the big events, I think in 2013, at the end of that, there was Terrigen Mist released, which creates new Inhumans, but it also, I think it either kills mutants or it makes them sterile so they can't have mutant babies, or I don't remember exactly what it does, but it helps Inhumans and it obviously hurts mutants. And so that plays a big part in those 3 books that I mentioned, and I just don't like that aspect.
Yeah.
And it's it's not necessarily even teased. It's pretty much said, it's plainly stated that, especially in this issue, that Civil War II, the Terrigen Mist, is going to play a pretty big role.
Yeah.
There's a pretty big teaser at the end of this book. And I am not a fan of that entire storyline. That's why I dropped both of the Inhuman books, and I'm kind of teetering on dropping Extraordinary X-Men. Really, the only reason I've held on to that book as long as I have is the fact that I like the X-Men. That's one of my favorite cartoons growing up. I love that group. And I always kind of there's so many X-Men groups out there, like books out there, that I always, to save money, I just pick one, and that's the one that I read. And so if I were to drop this book, I wouldn't be reading X-Men. So I don't necessarily want to do that, but I also don't like the fact that there's this Mist storyline, and obviously that's going to play a role in this Civil War storyline, this big event. So I think I'm going to be ultimately disappointed in this event if that plays a huge role in it.
I have what might be a stupid question, but
okay.
You talking about it got me thinking about it, because I read this today. At the end kind of teaser, is that the girl or the boy?
I think it's the boy.
Okay. It wasn't very clear to me.
I wouldn't say that this is a bad book, but for what it is, I mean, you kind of have to take it for what it is, because it's not action packed by any means. It's just a lot of exposition kind of setting up for the big event.
Yeah. I thought that this book would draw the line, and it kind of teased the line. It teased the line, maybe. But besides that, I guess it's like you said, just a little bit of backstory for those of us that don't read every single Marvel title to kind of know what's going on in the universe. So cool.
All right. So the next segment is just plainly called Nerd News. Tyler compiles all the big nerd headlines, and we just discuss them on the podcast. So what's Nerd News this week?
So this first one I thought was a little intriguing. Kevin Smith directed an episode of The Flash a couple weeks ago, and he said that he doesn't want to direct Arrow, but he wants to write for Arrow, and he would want to do like a 5-episode arc using his villain. I believe it's Onomatopoeia. Yeah. And because Kevin Smith wrote Arrow comics in the past, and I believe that villain was in there, and then the villain was also in his Batman book, The Widening Gyre. So it's a character that's in DC lore, and I think that that's kind of a cool idea. You and I are not caught up with Arrow, not watched Flash because I've not watched Arrow.
Yeah.
Obviously CW is doing something really cool, but we're both huge Kevin Smith fans, so I thought that was kind of a neat story, and it'd be something I'd be very interested in getting caught up on so that I could watch it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting. Like you said, we're both big fans, so it's kind of hard to be biased when it comes to stuff that he does. But it'd be interesting since he created the character, I'm always interested to see if you would change anything, or if it would be a straight adaptation, because I think it's kind of hard for writers and creators like that to kind of look at their own work objectively and what would work within the TV universe. And I would be intrigued. Like you said, neither one of us is watching this show, so I doubt I would even watch it, even though it is his stuff. I didn't watch The Flash just because from what I've heard him talk about that particular episode, it seems like it was setting up the finale, and so I don't know what's going on, and I'm not going to watch the finale, so there's really no reason for me to see it.
Yeah, it's just you never hear about like somebody taking a character they created in the comics and then also writing for them in a different medium.
Yeah,
especially something live action. So it would be like Alan Moore if he wrote a Killing Joke movie live action. And I mean that he's a weird example because he's so anti movies based on his work.
But do you blame him?
I mean, they don't have a great track record in adapting them. I think that the new DC animated movie probably finds some success just because it's a one-of-a-kind type situation. But,
for sure.
But yeah, it's just you never really hear about that. So it'd be kind of cool if he got to go that route with his character. All right. So Blade, Moon Knight, and Ghost Rider are rumored to be getting Netflix shows.
Okay.
I don't remember where this rumor came around, but I think that it was some stuff that Marvel had copyrighted, and it makes it seem or lead up to appearing that these characters are going to get their own Netflix series. Not together, each one separate, at least at first. So I think that a Blade show would be pretty cool, but I don't know how you fit vampires.
Didn't they already try that though?
It was on Spike TV, right? I never watched it. I'd imagine though, like it would be in the same universe as everything else. So I don't know how you kind of bring vampires into that.
Yeah.
Ghost Rider. I don't know the character very well, except for the Nick Cage movies. So I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth around the character. Again, I don't know how you do that in the current Marvel universe. Moon Knight would probably work because I think he's a little less supernatural, from what I understand. I don't know. I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad they're capitalizing on Netflix and capitalizing on their characters, but I'll be really curious to see how they make it work.
I think Blade could work, like you said. Obviously, if it exists in the same universe as Daredevil and the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all this other stuff, I think it's tough because, like you said, it's ridiculous in the sense that there's these superheroes. So you kind of have to take a leap of faith there, but you would have to take a really big leap of faith with Blade. Ghost Rider, I think, could be done.
Yeah.
Nick Cage was obviously not the right actor, and it was just not done well. The movies are just garbage. And so I'd like to see that character done well. But again, it kind of has the same problem that Blade has. If it's going to exist in the same universe, that, again, you take the leap of faith with the Marvel movies, but at the same time, like it's a lot easier for you to believe the Marvel movies and Daredevil and Jessica Jones than it is for you to believe in Ghost Rider and vampires and stuff like that. So it would be pretty ridiculous. It would be a pretty big leap of faith, but
it's just hard. Like, imagine watching Captain America Civil War and knowing that in that same universe there's vampires.
Yeah.
It just doesn't mesh well with what they're doing. And the Grim Reaper.
Yeah. That's essentially what Ghost Rider is.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it, but I'll be interested to see what route they go, but I don't know. It seems a little weird.
Yeah. I would just like to see Ghost Rider done well, and if Daredevil and Jessica Jones is any indication, they're obviously doing really great things over at Netflix and Marvel. So,
yep, I have faith in them
for sure.
All right, so Sherlock Holmes 3 might start filming this year, and there's also the option for further sequels in that universe, that trilogy. I guess it would be at that point a trilogy of movies. I really liked the first Sherlock Holmes. The second one was okay. I think Robert Downey Jr. is fine as the character, and him and Jude Law have a lot of chemistry, and I really like Guy Ritchie, so Guy Ritchie directing those movies also worked out really well. Are you excited for a potential Sherlock Holmes 3?
I remember when the first one was released, I was really looking forward to it. I know that it kind of got, not necessarily shit on, but I know a lot of people had a problem with Sherlock Holmes being more like Jason Bourne type of character.
Yeah.
I didn't have necessarily a problem with it because it's just kind of a modern interpretation of the character. It's not a straight on adaptation of the character. So I appreciated that. Game of Shadows, is that what the second one's called?
That sounds right.
The plot was just really straightforward, and it bothered me. Like they teased this really big villain, and he had this big plot, and then it all just kind of boiled down to money, and that's just such a cliche motivation. And it bothered me that was the ultimate goal, and so I would like to see a third one because I did really enjoy the first one, and the second one was a disappointment. So I'd like to see if they could kind of redeem themselves with a third one.
For sure. All right. So next up, Marvel officially announced some additions to the cast for Thor Ragnarok.
Okay.
So it's been confirmed that Cate Blanchett's going to play the villain, Hela. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's Hela.
Okay.
So whoever she is, that's who Cate Blanchett is playing. These other two though were surprises. I didn't even know they were in talks for this movie. Jeff Goldblum is going to be in it as a character named the Grandmaster. And then Carl Urban is going to play
Judge Dredd.
I wish. He's going to play Scourge.
Okay.
So I'm not entirely familiar with these characters, if I'm being honest, because I'm not hugely familiar with the comic world of Thor. I just recently started reading The Mighty Thor, like I talked about last week. But those are some pretty impressive additions. I think that Marvel knows that the Thor movies are some of their weaker movies, and they're probably going all out with this film. I mean, you have Hulk in it now, and then you have quite the cast.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to damper my expectations because, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but the guy from What We Do in the Shadows is obviously directing it. I'm sure he has a hand. I don't know if he's writing the screenplay or if he's just like co-writing. I know obviously he has creative control being the director. So I'm definitely excited for this movie. The Hulk being in it, I think will definitely help because I think they have kind of a like a big brother type of relationship. Like they love to hate each other.
Yeah.
So they kind of have a frenemy type of relationship, and I think that's kind of fun. And so I think it'll be interesting. Hopefully it's not disappointing like the other two. Like Dark World was not good.
Yeah, I have not seen Dark World since theaters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that shows you how interested I was in that movie. I think that this movie, they're basically masking it as a Planet Hulk. It's going to be very much Planet Hulk, and they can't do a standalone Hulk movie because of some kind of rights issues with Universal.
I believe they own the story Planet Hulk.
It's something weird, like Universal has the rights to like solo Hulk movies, but Marvel can use Hulk in group situations, which is super fucking weird. And I'm really curious what that contract looks like.
Yeah.
But I think that that's what's going to put him in space is the Planet Hulk situation, which could be very, very cool.
For sure.
All right. So this last story, it came out earlier today that Michael Keaton was back in talks for the villain role in Spider-Man Homecoming. And then like 2 hours ago, it was basically confirmed through Variety that he's signed on.
Okay.
And Variety also claims he is playing the Vulture, and that has not been confirmed, but that's who they're claiming he's playing. So, yeah, we had talked about this a few weeks back whenever it was rumored, and now it seems like it's an actuality. It's kind of a weird situation that he was in a movie called Birdman, and now in Spider-Man, he is going to be playing a Birdman.
It's weird because we talked about it, and then like a week later, it was kind of poo-pooed that it wasn't actually on, and obviously that was probably a bargaining ploy to get more money or whatever. And
for sure.
It is kind of weird that he is playing the Vulture, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of Birdman jokes when this movie comes out.
Whenever
and that'll
he's
be
doing
annoying.
The touring.
For sure.
From talk show to talk show.
Maybe that's why he didn't want to do it initially. I think that would be kind of annoying.
I'm not a big fan of the Vulture as a villain, and
I think he's interesting.
I don't think that he's very high scope. Like he's somebody that Spider-Man can easily dispose of, in my opinion. It's weird. I wonder if he'll be the only villain, if he'll be the main villain.
I don't think he can carry his own movie.
That's what the character can. Obviously, Michael Keaton.
Oh yeah,
which is what's weird is you cast such a high profile actor in, a second rate villain, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I've brought up this point on the podcast. I mean, you've done what, 5 movies?
Yeah.
6. I mean, this will be the 6th movie. At a certain point, you have to recast the Green Goblin. There has to be a new Green Goblin every time. But the other characters, other than Batman, Spider-Man has the best villains as far as I'm concerned. So you still have a lot of good villains to pick through. I would love to see Kraven on the big screen.
Oh, that's
Tyler just came in his pants.
I would love a Kraven movie.
But at a certain point, you're starting to run out of villains, even though he does have a lot of great villains. So you can't just keep recycling these villains.
Oh, for sure. And I'm not expecting like Green Goblin first go around Spider-Man Homecoming, but I just thought that was a weird pull.
For sure.
The one good thing, though, is if like Civil War's any indication with how funny and witty Tom Holland is in that role, I think him and Michael Keaton will have some pretty hilarious banter. So, that's something to look forward to.
For sure.
All right, man. That's all I have for nerd news.
All right. So our main topic changes from episode to episode. We've been doing a lot of reviews lately, and that trend is going to continue. We're going to review The Nice Guys, which is a movie written and directed by Shane Black, who did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. He also directed Iron Man 3, and he was basically the mastermind behind the Lethal Weapon movies, which I did not know that until I was doing prep for The Nice Guys, this review. I was not aware that he wrote the first Lethal Weapon.
I forgot that he's in Predator, and now he's directing a Predator movie.
I did not know he was in Predator.
He is in Predator.
Cool,
as an actor, he's in Predator.
Awesome. I did not know that.
I forget what his character's name is, but yeah.
I'll have to watch that movie again.
Yeah, it's weird. But anyway, sorry to
sit
there off track.
The Nice Guys stars Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling as Healy and March, who are PIs that get tangled in a web involving the death of a porn star and collusion among Detroit's car companies in 1970s LA. So that cliche story that you see in every other movie. So we'd like to start off our reviews by just kind of giving a general overview of the movie, how we thought about the movie. We call it broad strokes. So what do you think of The Nice Guys?
I thought it was a lot of fun. Like, I didn't really know what to expect. I thought the trailers were pretty funny. But I didn't have a ton of high hopes just because I hadn't heard any buzz around it. But like I said, I had a lot of fun with it. Shane Black has a certain feel to his movies that I love, and that kind of carries that over. Like the dark humor that you see in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, it felt very similar to that movie, which I love. Gosling and Crowe have a great chemistry. They were a lot of fun to watch together. The only bummer that I honestly have with it was the time of year it was released. So I have kind of a bad feeling about what this movie's going to do at the box office, and I'd be interested in seeing a sequel to it. And I don't imagine that it's going to rake in the money, like this week and in May, where you can still see Civil War and there's some other high profile movies coming out. So I feel like this movie's going to fail when it shouldn't, because it is a lot of fun and it's very original.
Yeah, and they definitely set up a sequel
for sure.
At the end. And I actually didn't know this until, again, I was prepping for this review. This was actually originally supposed to be a television series.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it just never kind of took off, so he just wrote it as a movie instead.
Yeah. So what about you, man? Broad strokes.
So I have to admit, I wasn't crazy about this movie going in. This was actually one of your summer movies. I actually am pretty sure that I rolled my eyes when I first saw the trailer for this movie.
Oh, really?
Just because I honestly really enjoy his movies, but we have kind of already seen this movie in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Obviously, that's not set in the 70s, but I felt like we've already seen him do this movie before, and I'm not a huge fan of either Russell Crowe or Ryan Gosling, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked this movie. The chemistry between the two stars was great. There were some story problems, which obviously I'll get into here in a little bit when we talk about the story. But this movie was really funny, especially for a movie that only had 3 Hitler references. So, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked this movie.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Especially, I didn't realize you rolled your eyes whenever you saw the first trailer.
The more I saw about it, kind of leading up to because I'd been seeing trailers for this movie for a while now, the more I saw it, the more I was, okay, maybe this is not half bad. I mean, he's a good writer and he's a good director. It was my problem with it was I felt like we already saw this movie before, which Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a great movie. I love that movie, but I mean, I feel like we've already seen this movie.
Oh, for sure.
And I also was really looking forward to Inherent Vice, which this movie I think is going to be compared to that movie a lot. And I was ultimately disappointed in that movie, so I kind of unfairly judged The Nice Guys because I didn't like that movie that much.
I really disliked Inherent Vice.
Yeah, I think I liked it a little bit more than you did. I think we've had this conversation before, yeah. So let's go ahead and get right into the story of The Nice Guys. Like I mentioned before, it's a good movie. It's not a perfect movie, and most of my complaint about the movie is the story. I think these kinds of films that are kind of like shrouded in mystery and you kind of have to peel back the layers can be done really well and there are movies that pay off really well, like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Nice Guys has all the ingredients to be one of those great movies. It's funny, the stars are great, etc. but I feel like there was way too many threads in this movie. There was way too much information kind of just thrown at you, and they tried to peel it back and make it all make sense, but I don't think it necessarily tied together as well as some of his past movies and some of these other movies in the similar vein have in the past.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think on top of that, like just there being information overload and it being a little hard to carry or to follow, towards the end, there's a little bit of a pacing issue. And then my problem with the story, more so than what you were saying, was that a lot of things throughout their investigation just nicely fall into place. And it has nothing to do necessarily with them being good detectives or being good private investigators, but just kind of stuff falls into their lap.
I actually didn't mind that because they're not the best detectives. Yeah. They're competent. They're able to get the job done. But I thought it was kind of funny that shit just kind of fell in their lap.
It would be kind of funny maybe one or two times, but it's like almost every time this case takes a turn, it's something they stumble into, not something that they actually really figure out.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, there's a plot point where they're delivering money for somebody, and that whole plot point, and the turn that it takes was just kind of silly to me.
I enjoyed Hannibal Buress as the bee.
Oh, I was trying to place the voice. Yeah. It is Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, that was really like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas kind of weird scene.
That was a very weird scene. It was funny though.
Oh yeah, I liked it. But yeah, I felt like I was checking out every once in a while when they were just like force feeding us information, which is like the worst time to check out of a movie.
Yeah.
Because obviously some of this information was needed at the end. I thought that they teased the car company, and that ended up being a big part at the end in the third act. And I just don't think that they gave us enough information. It felt like they mentioned it real quick, and then it played a huge part at the end. And I was just like, oh, yeah, that thing that you mentioned an hour ago for 30 seconds is a big part of this movie, but yet you spent a ton of time talking to this old fucking lady that didn't end up being really a whole lot of anything.
Yeah.
So I just thought that there was way too much information, and I think some of it could have been cut out, or not necessarily. I don't think that this movie was too long. I just think that some of it could have been cut out to better explain stuff that mattered.
Yeah. I guess on top of that, for me, it was, towards the end, the real villain kind of emerges and their intentions kind of emerge. And I don't know if they meant for that to be a twist or not, but as soon as the character was introduced, it was pretty much like, okay, well, that's going to be the bad person here. That's the villain here. So I don't know if they were trying to have it be a twist that this person was bad, but I think it sounds like we both saw that coming a mile away.
Oh yeah, for sure. So the next segment that we always talk about in our reviews is performances. So what do you feel about the performances in the Nice Guys?
I mean, I don't have any complaints about the performances. I think Russell Crowe is kind of one note. In a way, but
I think that pretty much sums up his career,
especially in his last few outings. But that one note works very well in this movie and plays off of Ryan Gosling very well. I think Gosling
was he all the goofball that you wanted him to be.
Actually, in my notes, Gosling stood out to me. I thought that he delivered the better of the two performances, and I've never seen him that goofy.
Yeah,
and I really liked it.
He was pretty goofy in Blue Valentine.
Fuck that movie. I think it would be easy for an actor like that to just consistently kind of do the same role where he's the pretty boy and, girls swoon over him. So for him to do a movie like Blue Valentine or do a movie like this, where he's kind of like goofy and uncoordinated and not really great at his job and kind of funny, is cool. And it's fun to see him like that. Also, I just wanted to point out the girl.
Yep.
I don't know how to pronounce her name because it's really fucking weird, but it's like Angourie Rice.
Yep. That's exactly how I saw. I was like, okay, I should probably write down this girl's name. And then I was like, fuck, I'm not going to even try to say that.
Little Miss Rice. Either way, she's great as Ryan Gosling's daughter, Holly.
Yeah. And she's kind of like the third detective. She's actually the best of the three detectives.
She does more detective work, the more competent detective work than either Russell Crowe or Ryan Gosling's character, but she was great as well.
For sure. I have similar notes for basically all of what you said. I thought both Crow, even though he looked like he got stung by a ton of bees in this movie, I thought him and Gosling were great. They bounced off of each other really well. I think this is Gosling's best performance since Blue Valentine, even though obviously you're not a fan of that movie.
Oh, are you a fan of that movie?
I like Blue Valentine. I mean, I was making a joke because it's obviously not a comedy, but
yeah, Blue Valentine. Oh, it's a rough watch, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too off the rails, but I think both you and I watched that around the time when we were getting married.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it was. That and Take This Waltz is just like the worst movie ever. I fucking hate that movie. That's scarier than most horror movies.
No shit, man.
But I say that because I don't know if you know this. I fucking hated Drive and Only God Forgives. Those movies are garbage movies. I hate that everybody loves Drive.
I've never seen Only God Forgives, and I got it for Christmas one year, and I've never watched it.
It is a fucking garbage movie.
I've heard it's really bad. I don't love Drive, but I don't hate Drive.
Yeah, honestly, everyone loves Ryan Gosling, and I watched Drive, and I watched Only God Forgives, and I'm like, why do we think that he's a good actor? Like, he's really one note in both of those movies, and it's just a not interesting character for me. He basically plays a version of the same character in both of those movies, and neither one of them are interesting characters, and so this really was his best performance, at least in my perspective, since Blue Valentine, and I loved the kid as well. She was great.
Awesome, man.
All right, so we'll end the review by briefly talking about the action. I thought that this movie did a really good job kind of blending comedy with the action.
Yeah.
It definitely has that buddy cop feel to it, and it's really funny, but it does have a lot of action set pieces. I loved the final action shot, the kind of the conclusion to the movie. I thought it was really funny that Gosling's character, March, basically goes through this whole ordeal and he basically thinks he's invincible. And I thought that was a fun gag. I kind of wish that was kind of placed earlier in the movie, and then it kind of all of this shit happens to him, and it kind of builds that he literally believes, because the guy's a fucking moron in this movie. And so it would have been funny if like that was planted earlier in the movie, because it's really funny, like this 10-15 minute scene where he's just getting his ass beat and he just keeps getting up, and I think at one point he's like, I can't die, because he keeps getting shot at. He falls out of like a 10-story window, and it's really kind of a crazy 10 minutes, and I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of action pieces in it, but the last one especially was great, and the action that's kind of scattered out through the rest of the story is pretty fun too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad, because we're kind of winding down. This was a pretty short review. I'm kind of glad that we finally got to the point where we could focus on the positive. We talked about how the story wasn't the best, but I mean, ultimately, I think it's come through in this review that we both really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, I think the problem with us is we go into a lot of movies expecting it to be good. Yeah. And then even if we like it, we still talk about things we didn't like. With this movie, I think both of you and I were kind of indifferent to it. I was excited for it, but I didn't have crazy expectations. So the fact that we both liked it was kind of surprising. Yeah.
That being said, star rating.
I'm going to go 4, I think.
Okay, I was kind of teetering between 4 and 3.5, but I'm gonna ultimately give it 3.5. Like I said, it had some story problems with it. I will definitely be buying this on Blu-ray. I enjoyed it. I will definitely, hopefully enjoy it again when I get it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right, so we end each episode by asking a very nerdy question. Tyler and I like to ask what our favorite blank is, and we take turns each episode, and I believe it's Tyler's week.
Yeah, so even though Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe didn't play cops in The Nice Guy, it had a very buddy cop feel to it. For sure. And you mentioned Shane Black being the creative force behind Lethal Weapon, which is a famous buddy cop movie. So I want to ask you what your favorite buddy cop movie is.
Okay.
Mine is going to be Hot Fuzz.
Okay, that's a good one.
I love Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. They have a fantastic chemistry. That's why they've made multiple movies together, and they're kind of a creative team in a way. And Hot Fuzz is my favorite out of all of their films together. Probably out of both of their filmographies. Like if I were to have to pick a favorite Nick Frost or Simon Pegg movie, it'd be Hot Fuzz. It's great. It's hilarious. It kind of has some cool twists with the story. I don't know. It's a really solid movie. It's put together very, very well. It's almost embarrassing to say I almost picked Rush Hour, but
I would have given you shit about that.
I figured you would have. That movie just kind of has like a sentimental place for me. Like it's a movie that my friends and I loved growing up and quoted all the time. But I think that Hot Fuzz, even though it's like a newer buddy cop movie, in a long history of great movies like that, it's the best in my opinion. It's the one that I had the most fun watching. So that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah, that movie is really funny. I thoroughly enjoy it, but it's a little too long for me.
It is. Edgar Wright's movies with them are just like in, what was that last one they did?
At World's End?
Yeah,
the World's End.
That dragged on a little bit too. So.
Yeah, my problem with that movie, not to get into that, but it's the ending.
Yeah,
it just gets way too silly. And are you going to watch the Rush Hour TV show?
No, because it got canceled. And
oh, really? Already?
It got canceled this week, and also like I had no interest in it. Like I
actually didn't even know it was a thing until a couple of weeks ago. I guess it already got canceled.
Yeah, I don't know. The charm of Rush Hour is Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan yelling at each other in their respective languages, and that's the charm of that movie. I don't think that it carries over to completely different actors. So
yeah, and right. I can't. I couldn't stand the previews for that show because he was doing a really bad Chris Tucker impression.
I never even saw a trailer.
Oh,
for
really?
It. Yeah. So
I don't know where I saw it from. I'm probably on Hulu. Those damn ads. Tyler's got the no ad money.
All right, man. What's your favorite buddy cop movie?
This is a pretty easy answer for me because it's one of my favorite movies. It's definitely would be in like my top 20 if I were to make that list, and that's Beverly Hills Cop. It was before Eddie Murphy got super annoying and he basically played the same character in every movie. I really loved his portrayal of Axel Foley. I like the idea of him being a Detroit cop and kind of having to do things a certain way and kind of doesn't go by the book. And then he goes to Beverly Hills and everybody is completely by the book and they're really straight laced and nothing big ever happens. And so I appreciated that aspect of him kind of blending with those characters. And it's really funny. The sequels, the second one's not horrible. The third one is just garbage. I didn't like the third one at all, but the first one is hilarious. And again, I kind of like the idea of him going along with and kind of shadowing these Beverly Hills police officers that are really straight laced and by the book. And it's really funny. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's before he got really annoying.
Yeah. The Beverly Hills Cop movies are movies that just kind of slip through the cracks for me. Like I never saw them, and I hear such amazing things and I want to go back and watch them. It's just something I've never done. So that is something that I definitely need to go back and watch.
For sure. It is fantastic. All right. So that is the end of episode 95 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast. Like we said in the intro, check us out at Indy Popcaan from June 17th to the 19th. We'll be at booth 351. You can follow us on Twitter at The Nerds Podcast. Also follow us on Instagram. It is also at The Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. Comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Nerds You're Looking For. Check out our new Twitch channel. Rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use. We're on it. You can also email us at thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt,
we are The Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
See you guys later.